Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Let's talk tax issues as the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Committee has proposed that that's 95% of the informal sector be exempted from all taxes such as income tax, company income tax, withholding tax, and even VAT. Let's see what are the possibilities of that recommendation seeing the light of day as we talk with our guest this morning who joins us virtually, and is Professor Goodwin Oyedokun, the Professor of Accounting and Financial Development, Leeds City University, Ibadan. Is also council member, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and is a chartered accountant and chartered banker. So let's have this charter discussion this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and how are you guys doing today? Good morning to Nigeria.
All right. So the chairman of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Yidili, has made recommendations regarding exemption of tax for 95% of the informal sector. Let's look at that. Do you see it as something feasible, being exempted from company income tax, withholding tax, even VAT?
Okay, thank you. I think we should look at the consequences, whether intended or the one that is not intended, when a particular policy is being chunked out in the system. Informal sector is that sector that the likes of my mom, some of my relatives belongs to, and we have the larger population of Nigeria belonging to that sector. So you want to know if you exempt such from a very veritable source of revenue in terms of tax to Nigeria, what benefit do we have? And I tell you that to the sector that we are talking about, you exempt them from paying taxes means that you are increasing their disposable income. That is, they will no longer be able to pay part of their income as tax to government. So this time around, the informal sector workers will be able to grow their purchasing power. The impact of this is that there will be a kind of higher consumer spending. Of course, it will stimulate demand for goods and services, and it will contribute to economic growth. If I may expand on this, you also encourage formalization. That is, when you provide tax relief, especially to the informal sector, the business may be incentivized to formalize their operation. That is, when you grant them incentive in this kind of manner, they will grow, and at the end of the day, they will become formal, and then you'll be able to enumerate them properly for future taxes. It will increase their business registration and improve regulatory compliance, meaning that whatever they produce, whatever they do, it will be more of a good standard. Another benefit that you can accrue from this is business expansion and investment. And this benefits the businesses in informal sector, because they can now use savings from tax to invest more in their operations, and there will be more productivity. They will be able to also hire more workers. So the impact of this will be that there will be more job creation, higher production capacity, and of course, at the end of the day, economic growth. The last point I will give us on the benefit of this policy is poverty reduction, which means many that found themselves in informal sector will be able to expand their life in terms of what they need to improve on their life. So it will definitely help in alleviating poverty by increasing not only their income, but their way of life. So the impact of this will be, there will be higher income level, and it can improve living standard. But there's nothing in life that is good without its negative implication. And to sum it up, I'll quickly like to enumerate part of this implication of the policy of government, and depend on how government can manage it. One is reduce government revenue. Whatever and wherever you give incentive of this nature, the short-run income profile in terms of from taxes for government will be reduced, and it is not within that short run that you can gain it. However, if you wait to long run, you will be able to see the effect of this. So one of the challenges of this policy is that as exemption for this portion of the workforce will lead to substantial reduction in government revenue. And you know, government needs money, and they will continue to need money. It will affect their ability to fund public services and infrastructural projects. Another point that we can adduce to this policy in terms of its negativity is equity and fairness. When you say you are exempting informal sector, what happened to formal sector? What incentive do you want to give them? Is it fair on everybody? So you may want to look at the corporate effect of this kind of policy, but by and large, you need to look at utilitarian theory and see this policy, will it help more Nigerians than if that policy is not there. Another point that I would like to give is potential for informal sector growth. If you exempt them, and in the long term, you may discourage them from trying to cross informal life. I give you an example of this. If I'm operating in informal sector and I will not pay tax and nothing happened to me, it may incentivize my inability or my desire not to want to move to formal sector, because I know if I move to formal, I may not also want to pay tax again. And if you permit me, let me give you one more last point on the negative aspect of this is implementation and monitoring issue. Of course, you know that government cannot authoritatively tell us today that they have enumeration strategy for this informal sector. So how do you grant incentives to people you don't know? Okay. And the challenge is that effectively implementing and monitoring of such widespread of tax consumption can be challenging, and it can lead to administrative bottleneck and body. Even those that you know, have they been able to effectively monitor them, get them to be tax compliance in their nature? And if the effect of this will be inefficiencies in tax system. And you know, tax system in every claims rests on tax law, tax policy, and the tax administration. I think I should wait here and listen to your further questions so that I can continue. Thank you so much.
All right, nice submission from you, Prof. Glad to have you join us once again. I like the fact that you started by looking at the merit and the demerit of this policy. And you also talked about the impact on the informal sector, then on the part of the government. But this time around, I would like you to talk about the impact of these on the formal sector if the federal government is planning to grant exemption to 95% of taxpayers in the informal sector, almost like 100%. What will be the impact of these on taxpayers who are in the formal sector? I would like you to address that.
Okay, thank you, Femi. If you recall, I've been able to, in my prologue, tell you that it will be disincentive to somebody like me that I'm in the formal sector. Because when you give incentive to certain set of economy and you ask the other sector to continue to pay taxes, you will see a kind of a backlash on that. However, if you look at it economically, you will know that part of this is strategies to ensure that we bring them into tax net. However, formal sector will continue to suffer what we have, because if anything happens to tax rate or expansion of tax net, it will continue to be on those that are currently paying taxes. And that is why you must balance this by ensuring that there will be some certain incentive to formal sector. And I quickly want to relate what Taiwo Oyedele said when he was giving report of his committee over time. He has told us that the number of taxes that we have currently today in their double digit is no longer fashionable, and Mr. President has approved that the harmonization of these taxes should come and we should have one digit. So if you preempt them very well, one digit means 0, 1, up to 9, which means the number of taxes we will have in Nigeria should not exceed 9 at most. So doing this is also incentive to formal sector, because formal sector actually pay more of these about 36, 96 taxes that we have in Nigeria today. Femi, I hope you understand that.
Informal sector. Now, according to the chairman of the presidential committee, now he talked about the government not wanting to put effort, or not wanting to suspend, rather, according to him, nuisance taxes that do not add value to the coffers of the state. Now, does that imply that the contribution from the informal sector in terms of tax is negligible?
Are you talking about informal sector, right?
Informal sector, yes.
Okay, so let us look at it. When you say informal sector, this is green economy. This is underground economy that is to enumerate and assess them. So if they cannot assess them, if they cannot enumerate them, that sector. So the word informal sector, I don't know where they are getting their policy from with respect to 95% they want to grant. However, you can only grant incentive to people that you know. And the real definition of informal sector will be that you know them, they are already paying taxes, but you want to alleviate it. If you call informal sector incentive along the road, that you just go and ask them to be paying 1,000 per week because you cannot ascertain their profitability or income level, then that is not proper as far as I'm concerned. Maybe the remaining 5% that they are not granting are those informal sector that are notable and the tax authority could address formally. So if they're saying they want to grant 95% tax incentive to small and medium enterprises that are having income level are very inelegant, then I can attest to the fact that they will be able to see them, then grow their business. But what is the definition of Taiwo Oyedele committee? Informal sector that, and what we call granite in their board. But if your company of incorporation, I don't want to classify you as informal sector. Again, you can be, and I want their policy to reflect the name of those that they really. Thank you.
All right, maybe this will help put it in perspective. Now, the chairman was referring to those who earn or make less than 25 million. So he says if you earn or make from 25 million naira and below, then you should not be paying company income tax, VAT, withholding tax, etc.
Okay, madam, look at this. If you look at one of the Finance Act, the demarcation or breakage of structure of companies has been done, whereby you have small, medium, and large company. This has been done by having the large part of it to be paying 30% of their income, and the last one is paying 0, and the medium one is has its own. So this has been done, but further incentive into this, we actually help the economy. But what happened to individuals that earn below certain range, what do we do? That's the question we should be asking them, so that when they give us their report, we have a kind of complete assessment of what we have on ground, and let the whole society benefit from the policy of the committee. Thank you.
All right. The essence of having this kind of conversation, Prof, is to see how we can shape this kind of policy. Now, this is something to go by as the Presidential Tax Law Committee is looking at, granting this tax waiver. I would like us to talk about implementation now. As an expert in this field, talking about implementation, you are aware that the informal sector is largely unregulated, unlike the formal sector who are, largely they are registered, they are data-driven. Now that the tax force committee will be dealing with the informal sector, let's talk about what should they do in terms of implementation, how to implement this policy. What are your recommendations on the approach to this initiative?
Okay, thank you. There's something we call complementary policies. When you have a policy, you must be able to come up with complementary policy, especially with the respect to what we are discussing now. You must be able to combine tax exemption that we want to give these people in terms of policy to a kind of another policy that will make us or encourage us to encourage this sector to formalization, okay? And such as you have a kind of simplified business registration processes. Let them be able to assess credit. Let them be able to develop sound services. So with this, you are giving a policy as to exempting them from the burden of taxes, then enumerate them during the process so that you can have their record and you monitor them as they grow and cross that boundary. As they grow and they are out of that, I don't know whether I'm being heard again. So what I'm trying to say is that as they grow and they are out of that range of informal or whatever the 25 million, you definitely graduate them into this sector where you can tax them very well. You also need to strengthen other revenue stream in order to offset the potential loss that you have in this revenue profile. Government should also strengthen other revenue streams such as VAT or loss-free taxes and improve overall tax collection efficiency. Now look at it. VAT, whether they are in informal sector or not, will be easier to collect. And at the end of the day, even if you find yourself in informal sector, chances are that you still have to pay VAT on other things that you do. Then don't forget the role of monitoring and evaluation. Government should be able to establish robust monitoring and evaluation mechanism so as to assess the impact of this exemption policy they have and make necessary adjustments based on the study they must have done. And I want to believe that in that committee, they have a lot of professors, scholar practitioners, and let us get feedback from the stakeholder, like what you are doing now, you will be able to see. Then maybe my last point on this question you asked is target approach. You must be able to have implementation phase or target approach where these tax exemptions we are talking about are gradually reduced as business grow. The other point I gave you first was that let us encourage them, grow their business, and they move to the normal sector where we can tax them and get more. But another one is target approach. You have given them exemption now. Let us have a policy that will make you graduate that exemption such that you will be able to say, okay, from social level to social level, your exemption rate is 100%. From social level to social level of your informal activities, your taxes will be 10%. So let's have that, and it can help balance the benefit of immediate relief that we have seen in this, and then it will create what we call sustainable tax base. Thank you, Femi.
All right, so let's look at what the chairman of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee says. I'm going to quote him. So he said, so we think, by we, he means the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. They think that 95% of the informal sector should be legally exempted from all taxes, withholding tax, company income tax, even pay on their staff. Now, he says they're using data to inform the decisions. Currently, if you earn 25 million naira a year or less, you don't have to pay company income tax. You don't have to worry about VAT. So the focus now is on the remaining 5%, which would be the middle class and the elite for taxes. Before we get to the middle class and the elite, let's look at being exempted from VAT. So if the categorization is put at those who earn 25 million naira or less a year. So for companies or maybe individuals who have small businesses in that category, it may be easy when it comes to company income tax. It may be easy when it comes to withholding tax. But when it comes to VAT, what mechanism do you think should be employed to ensure that if they're not paying VAT, they also do not charge VAT on items that they deal with?
Okay, so this is what we call corporate effect of any policy, unintended consequences. We have a regime that can deal with that. And I don't want to support the fact that when you are exempting such, you should exempt VAT. Because people that patronize this informal sector are also formal sector. So what happens if formal sector is patronizing informal sector? Are you saying informal sector should also not, sorry, formal sector should not also pay VAT that I'm talking about? I think they have a lot of work to do. They will tell you, and when I say tell you, I'm talking about tax authority will tell you that they have technology that can do that, but I can tell you they don't. They don't. We don't. Even the one that formal sector are currently exploring has not been able to do all what it purported to have been doing. And we need system that is fit for purpose and the one that can relate to the informality of some of our system in Nigeria. So by and large, it will be difficult. It will be a very equivalent task for them to be able to follow up with this. And I want to see, as a scholar practitioner in this field, how this is going to be done. We'll follow up with them. And this kind of advocacy that you are doing here is a very good one to see it's true. I still take you back to the fact that when you talk about informal, they are using informal now in another manner that connote that there should have been another name for this group of people. Because informal sector will no longer be informal if you know them for certain and you can enumerate them. Thank you.
It seems there is an issue with the description or the use of the informal sector. It seems to be ambiguous, no clear-cut description or categorization of those who this recommendation is to benefit. Now, if the focus now is on the remaining 5%, which is the middle class and the elite, now the question is, do we really have the middle class and the elite playing in the informal sector? What is actually the informal sector?
If you say you are exempting 95% of informal sector, which is the largest of the population of taxpayer, first thing you must be able to say is that this sector you are talking about, do you have their record that they were paying taxes before? So what is their problem? One of it is that you said you want to relieve them so that the poverty level can be reduced. Good strategy. But have you been able to monitor their businesses to ensure that naturally their businesses are such that they don't have profitability level that you want? What will be your mind as to when you exempt this sector, how will it reflect on the society? Because this group of informal sector are also the one that services in terms of goods and services to the populace in Nigeria. will there be reduction in the cost of prices of goods and services that we have? Because if this will not happen, you are only giving them money, and at the end of the day, they will have more profitability to share within their business. So all these things you must be able to understand. You also need to ensure that you understand that this will have implication on formal sector. And the implication that we are talking about will be increased tax burden on this formal sector. Also, it will create a lot of unfair competition on them, because formal sector that produces goods and services and informal sector that produces almost the same goods and services, we send or have their products and services into the same market. And of course, we have said it over time that forces of demand and supply will determine the price. So if informal sector pushes their product into the society and the product is as a par with or at par with what formal sector will sell their product, then what is the benefit? However, what implication will it have if informal sector reduces their prices, but because of cost of production of formal sector, including the tax affair of these people, will they be able to match the prices and price level? So this creates unfair competition on that. And like I said the other time, it will be a kind of disincentive to formalize your company. Even those that are in the bracket of formal will be praying to become informal so that they can also enjoy this benefit. So we should look at all this holistically before we decide on the point we need to go. Thank you.
All right, let me make reference to a statement credited to the chairman of the Presidential Tax Reforms Committee, Taiwo Oyedokun, where he said that before the end of the year, there will be a new national tax policy as regards spending policy and borrowing policy. Now, what would you expect as a stakeholder, as an expert in this area? What are your expectations as regards some of the reforms that should take place before the new national tax policy is being introduced? Talking about constitutional amendments, what parts of the tax reforms should be amended, and what are these areas, how critical are they to these sectors by the time this is released towards the end of the year?
Okay, so like I said when I was discussing at the initial stage, a nation with tax activities, we have what we call tax system. And for a good tax system, we talk about tax administration, tax policy, and tax law. So it presupposes that when you are planning a very sound tax system, the three premises that we have that make a good tax system must be touched. Okay, so, and I see this in Taiwo Oyedokun committee's activities, as they were looking at consolidating, harmonizing, and giving us a tax regime that makes sense. They are also trying to use most of these, I call it grapevine, by dropping some information into the system for us to discuss. They are also using it to perfect what they are doing. Apart from the fact that they've requested for memoranda from people, this kind of your program also help them to address some points that will guide their behavior and their report. So I want to tell you that the previous tax policy made efforts to define what tax is. And I can tell you, I've told them severally, this tax policy that we're currently using was chaired by Professor Abiola Soni, who is also currently a member of this tax reform as well, that it is offensive to say when we pay tax, we should not expect anything from government directly. Those are offensive things that Nigerians don't want to. We have peculiar culture and nature. If you need to massage our ego to get something from us, so be it. You cannot, even your children, if your children stand in front of you and demanding, you will show that you are the father, you are the mother. So I think those are the things they need to go and check. What will be appropriate meaning of taxes? We say, is anything that you pay, whether it is called tax or not? No, those are vague and may not pass the test of time in Nigeria. And the tax regime in Nigeria is clear and it's constitutional matter. Okay, I think tax policy this time around should be friendly, should be focused. The current tax policy that we are using says that they are moving from direct taxes to indirect taxes. And this was disguised when we saw increase in VAT and reduction in other direct taxes, like company income tax. This time around, a statement of purpose that is better fit for the purpose should be made through the tax policy. Mr. President or government's mind must be able to make it to this policy that we are talking about. If you pay tax, what do you gain from government? Let's not shy away with the issue of quid pro quo that we all hide under. So all this issue of chicken and egg, which come first, should no longer find its way to our dictionary of taxes again. Let government be more committed by documenting it in that policy that government is serious about XYZ of Nigerians. If you pay tax, this is what we will use tax money for. I followed president of CITN some years to one of the states in South, and the governor was trying to tell us that all the taxes that he has collected so far, he can trace it to developmental projects in his states. Okay, can we have such as policy that taxpayers' money is going to in developmental projects? In the system where you have chunk of your budget going to recurrent expenditure, what do you expect in terms of development that we're talking about? And I should tell people that my mom has never worked for government. She did not, she won't get pension. What happened to her? So if certain sector gets all the money that we have in the system, what happened? So tax policy is a policy of government, and it must address what government intend to do. Yes, certain chapter of the Nigerian Constitution, especially chapter 2, give us so many things that are lofty. But the Constitution itself say this chapter is injusticiable. That is, you can't take government to court if those things were not done. Okay? So this policy should just help Nigerians to understand tax better, give it appropriate definition. Let us know that at a particular point in time, you cannot pay tax more than once on your income. In a situation whereby you have income of 10,000 naira and it is taxed on a several times, what do you make of it? So tax policy this time around should help us make sense of what policies should actually be. Okay, Femi, I think I should pause here for your next question.
All right, wrapping up in this, let's give you the chance to make your own recommendations regarding this proposal. A situation where there might seem to be a discrimination, tax discrimination between the formal and informal sector. What do you propose? And secondly, the Vice President has responded to this, responded to the proposal by the Tax Reform Committee that he's confident that the federal and state governments stand ready to ensure effective implementation of the reform proposals. Now, do you think there will be full implementation of this by the federal and state governments? And then let's look at the local governments, which seem to get more revenue from the informal sector.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's start with this. When the issue of fiscal federalism was put on table, when the issue of these tiers of government to stay on their own comes on board, even when local government autonomy was pushed, do you know that our state governor rejected it? So can you believe them? Can you trust them? Because power corrupts. The absoluteness of it is even the danger one, because it's continued to corrupt absolutely. There's no state government in Nigeria that will allow free flow of local government authorities. That's where they get their power from. And you cannot go to the house of a powerful man and you want to capture the man without first roping the man. So it's going to be a very difficult task. I tell you, this harmonization of taxes that we're talking about, is it from federal? The answer is no, it's local government. And their excuses will be they are not getting anything from anywhere. These are where they get their money from. And you sit at the federal, you want to tell them what to do at central and the likes. Do you know why it has it in rumor that VAT wants to be increased? It's because they want to use if you want bread, also give us banana. So what I see is that state government wanted the federal want to massage ego of state government by saying, okay, surrender these other taxes and don't let Nigerians pay them. Then we increase this other one. Then we increase the sharing formula. Okay, so don't let us lose focus of this. So my recommendation would be that would there be any regime that would make local governments stand on their own? Will state governor allow them to breathe? Then the issue of taxes and levies approved collection will be addressed formally. Implementation of this policy, if you say true, is that one, you need to touch the law and ensure the law back it. Again, document it well in our policy that this is where we are going and let it pass through normal approval processes. Then let us implement it. I want to digress a little. What happened to minimum wage since almost how many years? How many of the state governments have been able to adopt the federally approved minimum wage? See this tax implementation as the same thing as that, because one state governor will stand up one day and he will tell you that he has constitutional power to do X, Y, Z. Therefore, when you are trying to take them completely by ensuring that the law is amended and it says true and pass and specify what they can do and what they cannot do. Then you need to contend with other legal issues that will tell you that they have power to do X, Y, Z. So I think that would be part of my recommendation, my sister.
Thank you very much, Professor Goodwin Oyedokun, who has been our analyst talking to us about the recommendation of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee regarding exemption of taxes for 95% of those in the informal sector in Nigeria. Now, he is Professor of Accounting and Financial Development, Lead City University, Ibadan Council member, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and Professor Goodwin Oyedokun is also a chartered accountant and a chartered banker. Thank you for your time with us on Early Exchange today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Quite large.
Thank you.
All right, this is where we draw the curtain on this week's edition of Early Exchange. It's been a great one from Monday until now. If you joined the conversation late and you're wondering what we've been talking about, yes, we've talked about World Telecommunication and Information Society Day, and we've also looked at the CBN's policy regarding bank customers availing their social media handles as part of KYC. And then we wrapped up looking at the proposal of the Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, which is to exempt 95% of those in the informal sector from all taxes, because according to the chairman of that committee, Taiwo Yedili, he said that the new reforms are to help those who earn 25 million naira or less a year, because they think that the informal sector, people are trying to earn a legitimate living, and they should allow them to be and support them to grow to a point when they can have the ability to pay taxes. talk about Let the Poor Breathe. I'm Blessing AJ. We ask that you join us again Monday, 8 a.m. West African time for another edition of Early Exchange. And stay with SOUQ News the entire day and all through your weekend.
All right, it's also important to remember that the conversation continues on our social media platform. You can also go to our YouTube page for a catch-up in case you missed this conversation, because this is where the big story lives. Until when this program returns afresh on Monday, I remain Femi Ayodele. Thanks for watching and have a nice weekend.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.